Okay, folks, we're going to get started. Thank you very much for coming along today. Hi, I'm Steph, and Dave, who will be introducing himself shortly. We're hoping to encourage more people to hire junior developers and technology staff and kind of improve the way that we're hiring so we're a bit more inclusive as we go along. So a quick bit about me. I run a startup, Nightingale HQ, building a marketplace of digital and AI services aimed at the manufacturing space. My background is as a techie, done a lot of data and AI over the years. Back when planes were a thing, I would regularly be flying around conferences and talking about things like the ethics in AI, how to build kind of scalable data infrastructures and more. If you have any questions for me or want to connect and follow up later, here's my Twitter, LinkedIn, and email. Now over to Dave. Dave, you're on mute.
Sorry. There you go.
20s phrase. 2021.
So I'm Dave Sadler. Yeah, as Steph said, I'm CEO and director of Sadler Recruitment. I've got 15 years recruitment and talent management experience. The business I've set up fairly recently, it's been set up, yes, it's recruitment and talent management, but I want to be seen as a person that's involved in the industry and trying to bring out change because I think it's needed. In my old company at Acorn, I actually created and implemented a software bootcamp where we took STEM graduates, non-computer science, through a 12-week program and made them fully fledged junior developers. I also wear another hat. I am talent advisor to Technology Connected, so I'm working on a couple of initiatives with them, and I've got a pretty good network of tech professionals across Wales and the UK. Similar to Steph, I'm on Twitter, which is there, LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out, and there's my email. So today, it's obviously great that so many of you can join, and it's great that I can partner with someone of Steph's sort of ability and standing. What we're hoping to do is cover a lot in quite a short period of time. I try probably 45 minutes and then 15 minutes for a Q&A at the end. So we're looking, as it says on the screen, why hire juniors. Steph will give an overview of her recruitment process and successes and different things she did. We'll talk about the hiring process, that looking at the old way and looking at the new way, looking at things like bias, looking at things like job descriptions, the good and the bad. And we'll give a couple of ideas in terms of how you can improve performance moving forward. And then Steph's going to talk about, once we've got a more inclusive and diverse workforce, what do we need to do to retain them? And then finally, we'll talk about an idea that we've got, because we've got a pool of candidates that we think are employable. So, as Steph said, we want to talk about juniors. And firstly, I should say juniors, not as in age, but as in people who are fairly new to their industry and their craft. So firstly, why hire juniors? I think it's very, very important, and I've championed this for ages. We don't have a choice. Personally, we need to wake up to the realization that there isn't and won't be enough technologists in our local area. It's as simple as that. TechNation produced a report in 2020 that showed that Cardiff's got an aggressive startup scene. Welsh Government are still pushing in with investment through, so there's more companies coming into the area, which creates great opportunity, but it also expands this problem. as it says on the screen, Cardiff, so LinkedIn said Cardiff is seeing the same rate of employment growth in tech and service industries as London. Just give that a minute. That is crazy. But what that tells us is this problem isn't going away, and we need to act now in terms of evolving the type of people and the techniques we use to get that more inclusive and diverse and expanding workforce. This was, Steph and I were laughing at this yesterday, but I did some research personally, and I think there were 65 mid to senior software engineering roles, and only 3 of them were categorized as graduate or entry level. So 3% of roles being advertised right now are at entry level. Some of this slide is fairly obvious, and I'm sure you know most of this, but there's huge benefits, not only for the juniors, but for the wider team and the company as a whole. Lower overheads, salaries are lower, obviously, and better for the bottom line. So perspective. So if we are talking about age and we're talking about a graduate or a young boot camper, you're tending to move into the millennial attitude. Or if we're talking about someone who's reskilled, that is potentially older, they're all coming with different perspectives. And I'm told from technology leaders that, and we look at this further in the presentation, that the more diverse the workforce, the more productive and collaborative the teams are. Knock-on effect, obviously, benefits to juniors, there's greater diversity, and also there's an increase of loyalty. So I'm told that sometimes software professionals or tech professionals come with baggage. They've got opinions about certain things, and they really, even when they join companies, they try to sort of push that across. Whereas hiring someone of a junior nature, they don't have that. They don't have preconceived ideas. It's your opportunity to build them in the right way, give them the right domain knowledge. And the knock-on effect tends to be that they will stay longer. I think the average now career stay of a developer at each company, and I'm sure you know, is probably 1.5 to 2.5 years. So you're going to lose people constantly anyway. So investment in juniors will hopefully have a knock-on effect of how long they stay. It's not just the individuals either, it's a knock-on effect to the additional, the wider team. So if you have more juniors coming through, then obviously there's more opportunities, so promotion opportunities, and you can give more of your senior staff options, which again will have a knock-on effect of retention rates. So if people get to a certain ceiling within a business, and I hear it all the time, then it's maybe because they've got as far as they can. They're a senior developer, they can't do any more. Whereas if there's a lot of junior people in there, they're going to need training, they're going to need mentoring, there's going to be management opportunities. So there's lots of benefits to hiring, increasing the pool by hiring more juniors. And we've got to open this net. So I think, I'm sure we all agree, but we're all still guilty of this computer science. Everyone wants a comp sci degree. Everyone wants a degree from somewhere. Yes, that's great, but these people are getting snapped up by the companies, but we need to open this net. There's lots of different avenues now that lots of people are using. And even I was reading yesterday that in Eastern Europe, they are far better than we are at this. And they have a much more open net to choose from. So we can look at school leavers, we can look at college leavers. The government during this pandemic will be pushing apprenticeships. They're pretty easy to access. There's things like kickstart schemes, which is really cost effective. But again, it's increasing that talent pool. There's been a lot of talk, certainly through the tech companies and internationally, about boot camps, but there's so much, as you guys know better than me, there's so much content out there. So with, I don't know, Udemy, Code Academy, there's so many opportunities for somebody to almost learn what they need in the house, but they need the opportunity for companies to take a chance on them. Boot camps, I mentioned what I ran for Acorn was that 12-week boot camp, but there are companies out there and businesses yourselves, you can run your own boot camps where you bring in people without the sort of historic way of coming into technology, and you put them through a training course, and you'll be amazed with the results that you get. I spoke to 2 of the guys that we put through the Acorn bootcamp. One had a physics degree, one had a maths PhD, and they're now mid-senior, almost architect level, 3.5 years later. So it is proven to work. Career changer. This is quite an interesting one, and it's quite apt because my wife has done exactly this. So for those that don't know, so she was working in social care. She was looking after homeless families. Hugely credible, but she felt that she wasn't using her brain. She had all A's at A-level, pretty clever girl, but she decided that she wanted to move into a different industry. So I was obviously in tech. I talked to her a bit about it. She self-taught CSS, HTML, bit of Python, and then she moved on to do a master's in the Software Academy in Newport. She's now working at the ONS, and yesterday she found out that she got a distinction in her master's. So it just shows that there must be a bigger pool out there that we can pull from. It just needs people to open their mind to bringing them in. And the pandemic has helped this. I think it's shown us that the new norm is remote working. There's less emphasis and ownership on the companies to basically know where people are, what they're doing. It's a lot more goal orientated rather than KPI focused. It's not oppressive. It's a lot more relaxed, and there's a lot more trust now, which I think is really, really important. And it's great to be able to offer that to people coming into that net. It's also, and I think this is personally, I think this could be the future, and I know a couple of companies of you are watching are actually doing this, but we've got to get away potentially from the, you must have X amount of experience with X technology. It's almost that you are a programmer, using programming as an example, but you are a programmer, you can code, you can come with the skills that you've got, but we will train you to the way we do things. That again would open the pool up so much more. But there's so many ways now of bringing more people in, and the whole remote working in terms of recruitment, retention really, really helps bring this new pool into working for you guys. I'll let you read these yourself pretty much, but what this slide shows is that there is loads of people out there that we're just not tapping into. So 21% of tech degrees are received by underrepresented minorities. 10.8% of respondents identify as female, transgender, gender non-conforming or other. 35% of people who go through boot camps are women. So there's a huge pool of people that aren't going through the traditional routes, and when they are, they're completely underrepresented. Steph was telling me, obviously, and this is quite important, but it's not only that we're doing that, we're also, when we are having better policies, we're not doing everything to keep them and allowing them to evolve and expand. So I read yesterday that people from the BAME community find it's really challenging due to work cultures and stereotyping. 56% of women leave IT before their mid-career. So we're struggling to open that net and open our minds to that net, but also when that net allows people to come in, we're not doing the best to look after them.
Okay, so with a view to talking about how we can hire juniors effectively, I'm going to tell you a bit more about what I've just done to try and build an effective hiring pipeline for Nightingale around hiring juniors. So I already had a junior member of staff in our tech team. Sean actually started 2 years ago. Autistic, did an internship with us, and then moved into the junior role after being an exceptional person and great at development. So we're a remote first company, so we were able to work really well for people who are neurodiverse, because we do a lot of asynchronous work and pair programming and things like that when needed. So Sean was with us for a couple of years, got the breadth of everything from Azure infrastructure through to front-end coding, helped us tremendously as a startup. A junior who is really good and a super fast learner is a great way to keep our costs low. And Sean got a ton of experience and then was approached by a much larger agency with a specialism in an area that Sean wanted to move into next, and felt confident and enabled to be able to go and take that new job. So whilst I didn't get to retain Sean for more than 2 years, it was great that somebody who thought they may never be able to hold down a full-time tech job because of the prejudices and difficulties of things like full-time environments, full-time office, open plan environments, was able to go and get not just one job, but 2. So with Sean leaving, we needed to be able, we wanted another new junior to be able to come in and continue helping us grow the business. So we started our hiring process. So at a high level, before we kind of drill down, the first thing that we of course do is write our job description. So for that, I wrote the job description with inclusivity in mind, because it's important to our organization. We are, next week, we will be 75% female non-binary organization and 30% of underrepresented minorities. So it is really important to us that we continue being that sort of organization where people feel comfortable being able to work. So we wrote that job description. We get feedback from the Cardiff Dev Slack group. There's a jobs discuss channel. So we're able to actually get real feedback from developers and people who are interested in tech about the job description to be able to help us make it more effective at reaching different people. We turned it into a website, so instead of just a classic Word document, we exported to Sway and had a nice whizzy interactive online piece, and we posted it online. The tweets that I sent out 2 tweets about the job, and I had more than 100,000 impressions on that job description, which is fantastic for a startup to get that many eyes on something that people are going to remember as being a feather in Nightingale's cap. Then we started getting applications in. We had more than 60 applications for the role. For now, we were working with only UK right to work candidates, so we filtered those out. And I personally interviewed more than 30 applicants for the role, because we wanted to make sure that everybody had as big a time to shine as possible, instead of just going off of a CV, which for juniors can be very difficult to achieve getting to an interview stage. So we did the interviews. Most of the interviews were 15 minutes. I asked 5 key questions. We recorded them and automatically transcribed them, so we were able to review later. And what was great was, of the 30+ applicants we had, more than 70% of them were from underrepresented minorities. So we were able to build something that most businesses, most IT teams, when they're telling you they can't hire underrepresented groups because they're not getting the applications, we can get the applications. After doing the 30-odd interviews, we shortlisted. We got 7 applicants. Some had cross-trained in some had existing tech experience but not software engineering. Others were out of boot camps. Other people had come out of an alternative degree and had been doing self-teaching in their spare time. So we were able to get quite a few different people. We paid them to do then a 2-hour tech experience. So we had back-end and front-end tasks because we had people from a range of capabilities, and we gave them enough information to be able to do a relatively limited set of tasks. So we set the goal for the shortlisting to be able to see that they could achieve what we consider to be kind of the basic types of tasks that the junior will be doing. We challenged them to do it in whatever languages they were most comfortable in, and we were with them to be able to answer questions, see how they solve problems, and generally interact with them to make sure that they were comfortable with us for being able to work inside our company later on. And then finally, based off of how they approach those tasks, their ability to learn. We're a startup, so we took into account their ability in other areas. So it wasn't just their technical skills right now and the tech skills that they could learn, but also where they came from was equally important to us, because as a startup, if somebody's done a lot of contract, like legal work, fab. If somebody's done marketing, great. If somebody's done QAing, fantastic. Lots and lots of backgrounds can add benefit to a small team. So this is kind of the high level. I'm just going to show you some of the different bits and pieces that went into this under the hood. So the first things first was our job description. Starting out with a non-stereotyped person so that we could be more inclusive. And then we started doing things like takeaways from the role. So what will the person gain? Our minimum requirements, super light. There are only 2 things we set. We go into our culture and we make it clear that people could work around their children, family situations. We have core hours, and that's the kind of thing that we want people to be able to do. And most importantly, we were upfront about salaries. It is so hard for people to know whether they should be applying when they don't know whether it's the right level of cash for them. So that generated us more than 60 applications. We then sent everybody an invitation to interview. To be able to do 30-odd interviews myself, I applied dry, don't repeat yourself. So I made a video of myself overviewing the company, the role, and some of the common questions that people would have, this being potentially their first time applying for a junior software engineer role. And I made sure that we were very transparent about the process. So I gave them the video link. I was also able to put the closed captions on, so I wasn't just including only people who could hear. I gave them 3 options to fit us in around their schedule, so there was nobody who dropped out of the process because we were inflexible. I tell them what's going to happen in the interview. I remove uncertainty about things like dress codes and stuff, tell them how they're going to be able to get on it, and then what the next steps will be after that. Because that clarity of process really helps somebody who is very nervous around potentially their first job, their first technical job, or their first move into this field, that what will happen. Then we did interviews. So I interviewed tons of people. We had people who were transferring in, people who were juniors. We did have some people who were a bit too early, who'd maybe taken their first Code Academy course, and we're able to offer them recommendations for the next level to get to kind of where we think we would need to be hiring from. There were, of course, people who didn't book their interviews, and surprisingly, for how many interviews I did, I only had 4 no-shows, so I was quite happy with that. We recorded everything, and that was really helpful because I had like 10 interviews in a day I aimed for, and as well as the notes, that meant that we could always come back, review, and get a better perspective of the candidates. I asked 5 questions: what their favorite tech project was and why, what's their experience being with source control, what's their experience being like with testing their stuff, how do they like to learn, and what skills do they want to have achieved within a year. So these were my benchmarks because they need to be passionate about tech, have delivered some sort of project or prototype or something by themselves or in work or something. Everyone needs to know source control. Everyone needs to be able to test their stuff. So I was able to gauge their progress along key attributes that we consider important baseline pieces. We then did the tech experience. So we'll go into this in the hiring process piece, but it is really hard to assess somebody's skills. Everybody responds very differently to different types of tests. The things that matter most to us as an organization in Nightingale is not that somebody is the most technically competent immediately, but that they're able to learn and apply structure to their work so that they can achieve the end goal and that they can ask for help when they need it. It is absolutely no good to me if somebody is quiet for 2 days because they're trying to brute force a problem that if they'd have talked to myself or Chris, the other senior techie, could have been solved in 5 minutes. So before the tech experience, we give them detail about roughly what they're going to expect so that they don't stress too much about the unknown. And then on the day, we give them the requirements. We verbally brief them as well as providing the written details. And they were then able to approach the challenge. We had basic criteria and stretch goals. This was to help us gauge people's expertise, ability to learn, and so on. In the end, we had some really decent results from our different people. This was the winner, Nikhil, who's joining us on Monday. Nikhil built this from scratch, branded it, and got it on GitHub and deployed on Netlify in less than 2 hours. So we were able to pick somebody who's able to deliver already a really good standard of work, but had an appetite to learn, because even when they were going through their coding, they were refactoring, trying asynchronous programming, Googling for it, and really getting stuck in and clearly enjoying the job. We've made sure that because it's their first role in technology, that they are well onboarded. We've had calls with them to introduce them to the key team members. We've given them some recommended pre-learning so that if they have time, they can be kind of plugging away at some stuff. Made sure that their contract and their information about the role is very clear, and we've agreed a training plan for their first few weeks. And most importantly, for everybody who wasn't Nikhil and ourselves, we gave feedback. So if somebody didn't get to the shortlist stage, we were just generally very nice, and we're trying to move them forward. For the people who got to the tech experience, we went into much more detail about the good things about Nikhil that we measured, so that somebody can think about how they experience the tech experience or their interview or where their stages are at to be able to draw their own set of next steps. So I went through a lot of effort 30 odd interviews is a lot, but each of those interviews was only 15 minutes. And it really was fantastic to be able to meet so many amazing people. And we'll talk more about that in the talk to more candidates bit later. But so many amazing people.
Brilliant. I'm sure I'll let you take time to digest that. It's when Steph told me about the process, I just thought, wow, that's just fantastic. And that's the whole point of today, really, is to obviously talk about the subject, but to give you demonstration of what different things are out there and how it can really impact the pool of people that you bring into the process. I think it's a wonderful representation of how to hire. So on the hiring process, we've all been through it numerous times, I'm sure. So the old way. So what I've seen over the years and talking to Steph and talking to other people, we still do the same things we've done for years and years and years. And I'm not picking on anyone in particular. I'm sure there's people that have adapted and evolved and do things very well, but I'm just sort of generalizing, really. We still do things the old way. So filtering, recruiters, talent teams, and even, I guess, sometimes companies don't even use the technology managers to do the filtering. It's done by people who aren't technical. And won't see things that other people will see. There's keyword searching. Everyone's doing direct word matches. Has the CV got C#? Has the CV got Java? Is that really the best way to be filtering talent these days? We tend to, I wonder if we tend to look for the perfect fit, not the fit to add. So we're always looking for the perfect person, if you like, rather than, okay, this person's got X, Y, and Z, that could bring something to our business. So we're looking at capability rather than fit. And I think we're moving more to AI and automation. So there are tools out there now, we know, that will look at keyword matching and try and pick out and filter candidates for you. So, but is that the best way? Have they evolved in terms of from learning experience, and is it the right way? I'll talk to you a little bit later about something funny that happened with a certain technology company. But and then interviewing. So I've sat on panel, I've done thousands of interviews myself, but also I've sat on panels and helped companies interview. And I think there's still this push for competency-based interviewing, which is a good way of assessing, but there's no real adaptability, I don't think. So everybody is being scored the same about the answers that they give. But what about looking at things like, how do we evaluate individuals that might not score well in those sort of subjects? Or if it's written, they might not do as well because of from differences. Different people, as Steph said, different people respond to different ways of assessment. So we need to be thinking about that. And I still see companies, I get job specs sent through to me with dates of 2014 or 2015. So there's these laundry lists that don't evolve either. They're just rejuvenated documents that are coming through that people are using as job specs or adverts or interview documents. And the process, I can't really say it better than what Steph said. There is a way where the process just goes step by step, but there isn't a communication at the start of how long the process will take, what will be involved in the process. Is there going to be something in the process someone's going to struggle with, and should that be addressed early in the process? So the new way, and don't get me wrong, there must be loads of ideas. Like, I've been looking over the last couple of weeks on the web, there's so much out there that people could be doing. I think the first one, and Steph is a big champion of this, is transparency and clarity all the way throughout. So there are lots of different people within this net that I talk about that respond in different ways. So I think businesses need to be more upfront about what is going to happen during their process. Build more inclusive job descriptions. I'll sort of park that there because I bring that up further in the presentation. And we need to really reevaluate the criteria. Do we really need a prime example, which I think is really, really funny actually. Everyone talks about team working, or everyone talks about communication skills, big things on job descriptions. But do we really need them? Could coders sit and listen to their headphones day in, day out? They're just things that we need to be thinking about. And then Steph will talk a lot about different tests and her opinions on historic and then new ways of testing. A really interesting topic. I got quite into this in the last month, if I'm honest, but there is so much out there on this at the moment. But you can see from that diagram, it mentions obviously a lot about conscious and unconscious bias, but bias really is like our unintentional people preference. So they're formed by our social experiences. We have, as humans, limited cognitive capacity, and we subconsciously categorize people when we meet them. We assign values to these categories, and then we naturally stereotype. Believe it or not, like, we do it without even thinking about it. According to statistics, HR teams are generally biased against overweight women. 20% of BAME individuals altered their name a couple of years ago, I think, and received more callbacks when doing so. And as humans, we tend to have a need to hire people that have the same interests and social attributes as members of our team. Steph brought this to my attention, actually, which I thought was really funny, that there was a company, I think it was in America, that they ran an AI tool. So they had a screening tool, and they used an algorithm that basically prioritized and looked at what the key criteria was that they needed. I'm sure some of you have heard this, but they ran the test, and they actually looked at the two factors that were most indicative of the job performance, and their name was Jared, and whether they played high school lacrosse. So needless to say, they didn't use the tool, as it says. But everybody, even tech companies, there's lots of companies that are trying different ways using technology, and it is a really, really difficult thing to overcome. Real good stuff. Again, we talk about culture, but is it culture fit or culture add that we need to be looking at? So this diagram, quick snapshot, basically proves that a more diverse team will naturally mean better performance. And so I think there is a need now to really assess and determine what the culture of the business is. And people need to think about that in their hiring process. Steph talked about it a lot. She wanted to really push what Nightingale was all about and really push that through that hiring process, even before someone became an employee. People look for companies they're going to enjoy working in. So if you're all about team spirit, say so. But if you're if you're like a low formality company, say so. It's also an opportunity for warning. So if your culture isn't inclusive, you're not going to get diverse applicants. So it's important to be thinking really about your culture moving forward. We mentioned it already, but there is this huge push to get this computer science degree. We need to ditch that opinion. We need to, don't get me wrong, they're going to be good graduates coming out, but you're not going to fill all the holes with graduates. So we need to be looking at boot campers. The average boot camper is 31 with 6 years work experience, got a bachelor degree, not in comp sci, and has never worked as a programmer. I gave you an example of my wife. I talked about the Acorn boot camp. There are proven results that say that people who are coming into this net from a non-comp sci background and traditional education backgrounds will progress and will do very well.
So on the topic of kind of assessing competency, when we hire, we're always trying to minimize the risk that we're going to get a bad hire, somebody who's going to really bomb their first few months, whilst also balancing that culture add piece of trying to get somebody who, even if they're not the highest performer, really help the team overall do better. And we're not very good at assessing competency, because being competent means it is expressed in different ways in different people. So we're still not getting it right. I'm still not getting it right with my tech trial, because the pair programming, even though we're giving them some Amazon vouchers whilst they're for spending 2 hours with us, it's still a relatively high pressure environment for people whose financial, like their lives might depend, their financial standing might depend on getting the job. But there's a couple of things you should be thinking about when building your testing strategy for how you're going to work out whether somebody's competent. So tech take-home tests, you give them a brief, they go and they spend some time on it and they bring back the results. That has a couple of negatives that you should be aware of for when you're thinking about it. None of these are perfect, so I'm just going to go into the negatives about them. A tech take-home test really preferences people who have too much free time. So people who don't have kids at home and don't have families that they have to look after, who aren't working lots of hours at their existing job. It also is really, if somebody gets very laser focused on tasks, they can find themselves sinking way too much time into it. Whiteboard tests. I personally hate the whiteboard test as a way of testing somebody, but writing pseudocode or explaining an algorithm on a whiteboard is a very high pressure way of doing it, because typically you expect people to be doing something that most people these days are not very familiar with doing, which is writing, drawing, and explaining things at the same time. So it's not very good for somebody who's personable. And also, most organizations tend to have their whiteboards a little bit too high for, if you had a candidate in a wheelchair, they might not even be able to take your whiteboard test. So you really need to be thinking about whether that kind of like high pressure multitasking component is something that you look for in a candidate. Then there's exams, so getting somebody to sit through a multiple choice exam or write some code online, things like that. Again, it's very high pressure. It's not necessarily how everybody's brains work, but again, if you need a lot of like quick memory retention and access, that could be a type of competency test that you do, because it's important to how your tech team needs to work. And finally, pair programming. So this is essentially what we did, where people work together to arrive at a solution. It tests a lot more people's collaboration skills and communication skills, but can be still quite high pressure. So that is better for people who are more comfortable collaborating, and again, isn't for everyone. So none of these are perfect, but you pick the one or pick another option that works for you, for the skills that you think you need the most inside your team. And just want to kind of round this off on the process. As I was saying earlier, we're ultimately trying to de-risk our hires, because it's an expensive exercise to go through a hiring process, but it is ultimately an even more expensive exercise to have low retention on the other side. So when we're thinking about being effective in our hiring process and improving how inclusive that process is, we open ourselves up to more candidates, we give ourselves more options, and we're hopefully able to get our hiring more right than wrong. So it's really just about thinking about that piece of who adds value and how do you hire for those people. So we're Dave's quickly going to talk about job descriptions.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've covered a lot, and like I said, we haven't got all day. I'm sure we could talk all day, but we must have all seen them. There's loads of things that are really, really bad on job descriptions. We use, a lot of people still tend to use aggressive language and language that is gender specific. So there's things like rock stars, ninjas, gurus. Yeah, I've seen these for years, and Steph and I talked about it. They do link well to the technology field, but who's it putting off potentially by using those terms? We all still see job descriptions that have got 20 essentials and 4 desirables. That really, there must be people reading these and just completely switching off and saying, look, it's not for us. So it's almost a big no-no. Poorly written job descriptions are social proof of an unhealthy company culture, and it's definitely something we need to work on. We need to, there's ways of doing that, obviously, and the improved inclusive practices are a big thing that we need to discuss to help you with not only job descriptions but adverts and interviews. So accessible format. We haven't mentioned this yet, but consider sort of neurodivergent candidates. So candidates with autism or dyslexia. So we need to be upfront and honest about the format, so it allows people to make the right choices and assess people in the right way. Inclusive language, we need to potentially remove superlatives and think about the choice of words. So if you look on the right hand side there's a advert that's been feminine decoded, so it's brought out all the things that would potentially put females off applying. Apparently words perceived to be female orientated include warm, collaborative and learning, and ones perceived to be male orientated include leader, aggressive and ninja, as I mentioned. So we've just got to be thinking about the language that we use. Mention the transparent process, don't need to go into that again, and Steph mentioned this, but I still see it now. Clients, I get it as well. I understand that we can't put salaries out there potentially because you don't want to tell existing people in the business what people are earning, but it's not worth it. I get it, it's going to cause a problem, but we've got to get away from that potentially, that everything needs to be out there, the whole process, all the metrics, everything needs to be displayed to allow people to make the right choice and give that bigger net all the information they need to see if they apply. The key, and I heard lots of people talking about this, is everybody needs to be involved in it. You need a judge and jury. You need people constantly pushing this message. You need people talking about it all the time. And also, more importantly, you need the directors, the SMT, to really be pushing this, because if it doesn't come from the top, it's going to be really difficult to push through your business. I'll give you an example. 2/3 of attendees today are women, and a large percentage of them, of you guys, are in HR or recruitment. Makes perfect sense. It's obviously part of your job, but to get your message through, you got to go higher up the food chain, and I think that's really important in terms of pushing diversity and inclusivity.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk briefly about when you hire juniors, what the heck do you do with them to make sure they stay with you? So the first thing that you need to make sure you have is a strong learning path, and ideally a learning culture. So if somebody's coming to you, whether from comp sci or from a boot camp or cross training in, they have knowledge gaps. We all have knowledge gaps, but they have bigger gaps than most in the areas you want them to be competent at. So you need to make sure that you have a structured learning path for them. That could be, and how we do it is, we just have a program of online courses that they work their way through and do little projects to demonstrate their learning from. And as we, particularly in the early days, we bake in time to learn into every task we give for junior. So we set out really clearly the critical success criteria and things like that for a piece of work or a feature, but we also then take the time to drop in some links to say, here's a good place to learn about some of the different pieces you'll be picking up inside this task. And we add time for that learning into the task, so we don't expect them to be perfect at it straight away. It's also really helpful to be able for them to know what career progression looks like in the company. How many years are they going to have to work before they get off that junior salary? What if they find that they want to go into are you going to do 3 months in each of the key areas? Are they going to get good at back end, front end, data? What happens if they like one more than the other? Be upfront about expectations and what they can achieve to help them know whether you are a place to stay. And finally, you've got to make sure that your senior staff are incentivized and given the time to look after your juniors. They're your mentors for these new people inside your organization. If your senior staff are 100% capacity, when are they going to spend the time talking to a junior through their tasks? Your junior is your cheapest available person for a whole range of tasks, but they still need some senior support to be able to perform those tasks. So when you're thinking about your senior staff and their goals and deliverables and how you're assessing them, you need to be thinking about how they will be supporting your juniors. And you might also you will probably need to add a learning path for your seniors to improve their mentoring, coaching, and possibly people management skills to make sure that they work with the juniors most effectively. So that's the whistle-stop tour around hiring juniors.
Yeah, and basically, as we mentioned at the start, let's all agree that Steph's thorough, in-depth, imaginative process was outstanding, to be fair. But what we've also got, and Steph and I have come up with an idea, we've got, I think it's 16, 17 candidates that are still available, still in the junior category and fall into the wider net, as we've talked about, and they're still absolutely chomping at the bit to get the right opportunity. So what we're going to do as part of my business as Sadler Recruitment, we're going to make those available. So Steph's got like an online tool where we can show the sort of the CVs and the information, but we've also got a plan to run a session, demand-led obviously, next Friday, where we do meet and greets with these juniors. So Steph's obviously pre-qualified them, they've come and passed her test, so we want to make them available to you. And if you want any more information on that, it would be great if you can join, but send me an email or contact me on LinkedIn and we can get you onto a session and introduced to those candidates. That's it. Thank you very much for listening. Like I said, it was a whistle-stop tour. There was a lot of information. Hope you found it useful. Any questions?